became quickly apparent that store owners did not want to do it themselves. They didn't want to implement on their own, right? Whether they're using Klaviyo, which is probably our most popular email platform, or we have some brands on Shopify email, we have some on OmniSend, a couple other email platforms. But when we asked them, it was either don't have time or don't want to learn how to do it. I barely know how to use Klaviyo, let alone this thing, whatever. So then we set off on our mission to like fully automate, make autonomous email marketing for brands. And we've since achieved that, right? When you sign up with Grid Pixel, we can fully automate and personalize all your email flows and all your email campaigns.
Welcome to the Simple and Smart SEO Show podcast. I'm your host, Crystal GPT, here to bridge the gap between SEO strategy and real-world business success. Grab a coffee or your favorite tea, and let's dive into smarter SEO for your business. Welcome back to the Simple and Smart SEO Show podcast, everybody. This is Black Friday, and I am excited to have with me today John Hogan from Grid Pixel. And Grid Pixel is a special email partner of Shopify and e-commerce sellers all over the world. And so, John, thank you so much for being here today. Tell us a little bit about Grid Pixel, like how you guys got started. How long have you been working with Shopify stores? And who is your ideal client in the Shopify space?
Yeah, of course. We started Grid Pixel about 3 years ago. I had two co-founders, Lou and Keem, and we had another company before this. It was actually in real estate, property tech. It was called HomeSnap. And we turned it into the largest real estate agent app in the country. And then in 2020, we got bought by a company called CoStar. Probably don't know CoStar, but they own a couple brands, apartments.com and homes.com, that they obviously like Super Bowl commercials for them and everything. They actually turned HomeSnap into homes.com. So like we ended up building that. But the way we grew HomeSnap so quickly was email personalization for real estate agents, helping them to generate leads. We did a lot of that. I invested in Facebook and Google marketing too. And after we came to our end at CoStar, we had some retention obligations. But in 2023, 3 years after getting acquired, we wanted to go and start another company that used the same engine that we use to grow HomeSnap, which is like email personalization, but in a different industry. And we thought e-commerce would be the best. In real estate, when you're generating leads for real estate agents, you get a lead and it might convert into a sale 6 months, a year down the line. And e-com, it's great because you send out an email and you can see results, full funnel results within 48 hours. So we started Grid Pixel and it focuses on three things. One is email personalization. So when you send out a Grid Pixel email, whether it's a campaign or an email flow, et cetera, the products, the product recommendations, the copy, it's all personalized to the end recipient. And we build a customer graph for each of your email contacts and figure out like, what are they most interested in? So that instead of just untargeted blast emails, everybody gets targeted email that converts at a high rate. Now, it's interesting how the company evolved because we had that sort of product from the beginning, and it was a self-serve product where Shopify store owners could sign up for it and then implement on their own. We got it to signups at first. We get a lot of app installs. But it became quickly apparent that store owners did not want to do it themselves. They didn't want to implement on their own, right? Whether they're using Klaviyo, which is probably our most popular email platform, or we have some brands on Shopify email, we have some on OmniSend, a couple other email platforms. And when we asked them, it was either don't have time or don't want to learn how to do it. I barely know how to use Klaviyo, let alone this thing, whatever. So then we set off on our mission to like fully automate, make autonomous email marketing for brands. And we've since achieved that, right? When you sign up with Grid Pixel, we can fully automate and personalize all your email flows and all your email campaigns.
What are the types of emails that people can create? Because I think when people hear, okay, I need an email list, what are the steps that people need to take to be able to build an email list? Let's start with that first. Like, how do you even begin an email list?
Yeah. So the fastest way to grow your email list is through targeted pop-ups and or cross promotion, right? So like for a targeted pop-up, it's like having first-time visitors and coming up with an offer that's right for them. I'm sure we're all familiar with going to a Shopify store to see you get 10% off. That one doesn't convert nearly as well as it used to. We're continually testing new hooks to get people in. Some of it's using language and some of it's the offer itself. So like we found recently using something like get a mystery discount a much higher submission rate than even offering like a higher percentage off, 15, 20, 25%. The second way is by partnering with other stores or industry influencers in your area where they're going to do some sort of promotion, and like you might sponsor like a free product giveaway or a free class or lesson or something like that, and drive a bunch of email signups to be entered into that raffle or whatever. And you get the emails that way. Those are the two fastest ways I know. Yeah.
Okay. So then after those emails are collected, what are people supposed to do with them?
Yeah. So the first thing you need to do is set up all of your flows. So if you look at the difference between like flow emails, and these are trigger automations. So a email subscriber does something on your site, right? They look at a product, they add something to cart, whatever, versus campaigns or blast emails, whatever, which is the other type of email. The flows or automations in a well-run account typically account for, I don't know, 50 to 60% of revenue generated, but only 2% of sends. So they convert at a much higher rate. Obviously, the contextual, the person did something to trigger that, earn that email, and that's why they convert at a higher rate.
So let's talk about those triggers. What are the things that people can do that would trigger this particular kind of flow?
There are different triggers available depending on what email platform you're using. But so for like Klaviyo, there's a set of 10 triggers that are basically available. And when I say basically, it's like anybody should be using them. So first is just your welcome series. That's where you're giving somebody a discount for their first sign up. It really encourages the first purchase, right? And once you get somebody to try a product once, it's much easier to get them to try it down the line, right? Everybody should have a welcome series on. After that, the abandonments are the most important. One of the typical mistakes or misconceptions with store owners is they think that abandoned cart email is it. And so I've got one of those and it's good. There are actually like 6 types of abandonments that you can send, and they all have served their purpose. They convert at different levels, but it's very important that you have them all on. The one that's turned on by default for your Shopify store, if you're using Shopify emails, abandoned checkout. That's when somebody actually makes it to the Shopify point of sale, right? But let's say they're on your store and they stop before that. So they just hit add to cart. If you don't have an abandoned cart flow set up as opposed to abandoned checkout, they're not going to get that follow-up email and you're going to lose conversions, right? And then it goes up from there. The next one is like abandoned product browse, right? So they looked at a product, but they didn't add it to cart or they didn't make it to the Shopify point of sale. So then you can send a trigger for that. And what I tend to see is like abandoned checkout, right? Converts at a very high level, but fewer people make it that far down the funnel, right? Make it intuitive. The farther you have to go, the fewer people are going to make it. And while flow like product browse is much more high volume, it converts at a lower level. But I see the dollar volume in terms of sales generated over an equal period of time to generally be similar, right? Checkout and product browse do about the same. Above product browse, there's viewed collection, right? So they viewed the collection instead of a specific product. You can send a trigger for that. There's search abandonment. So they search for a specific term like blue shirts and then left. And then so you can send them a follow-up email with every blue shirt that you have. And then finally, general site abandonment, meaning they're on your blog or something like that. They didn't actually look at any specific products or collections, and you could send a trigger for that. And those all produce meaningful revenue for our customers. On top of that, then there's all these post-purchase flows.
Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to say, I never knew that there were so many different types of flows that you could set up. And there's so many different things that you could set up to trigger an action for your email to do something for you on your behalf. So I always talk about using technology as an employee, like giving it a job. And so this is like a really great use case for that.
Yeah. So there are other flows that I think are very important. They're generally post-purchase, right? And there's a couple that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, like post-purchase, try to get them purchased again right away, right? There are different takes on this. Some people will say, you just bought, an hour later, they email you a discount to make your second purchase. I think that works, but in a very narrow slice. It really depends on the brand and what you're selling. For the most part, I see, especially in the cleaning, supplement, et cetera, verticals, which are some of the bigger categories in Shopify, making sure that like you send that message to them right after they're likely to have tried it. So we typically aim for 10 to 14 days after purchase, right? So like we use the delivered trigger and like maybe give them 48 hours to have tried it. So that they put on their jeans and try them and said, hey, these fit really good. Okay, now I'm going to order 3 more pairs or whatever. There's another flow called win back, right? Which is if somebody purchased and then a large gap of time goes by and you define that gap of time by default for most email platforms is 60 days. You send them some sort of nudge to purchase again. You'd have a sunset flow, which is used for controlling your email platform's costs, right? So on Klaviyo, paid by profile. So if a profile gets to be very old and they haven't purchased in a while, you have to answer the question, does it make sense to keep paying Klaviyo for this? But you can set up a flow that gives them a last chance and then automatically suppresses them. If you have any sort of consumable or supplement brand, one that's like often overlooked is what's called an order replenishment flow. So this you set on a timer. Let's say you're selling somebody like a 30-day supply of supplements. On day 25, you know that when they go into the bathroom in the morning and open the medicine cabinet or at night, right, they're going to notice that the bottle's getting pretty light and they're not going to want to miss a day if they're buying another product. So you could send them like a one-click trigger, right, where they just click that. It takes them immediately to Shopify, checkout, and all they do is push one button, whether they have a Shopify profile or not, to check out and make the next order. So those would be like all the standard basic ones that I would want to have set up for any brand. And then there are others, right? Let's just say this is based on like custom data. So for example, we have a brand that we work with, and this owner, she sells firming messages, but they're based on your zodiac sign, right? So we're able to set up a ton of other triggers that both help us collect zodiacs for profiles that we don't know, and then also push content out for those zodiacs when it's relevant, right? So this is just saying, okay, Crystal's an email subscriber and it's the month of May, right? And she's a Gemini. I don't know if that's true. It's probably false, but we're really going to focus on her for the month of May, sending out this whole journey on Gemini and what you can get and everything like that, right? You could accomplish the same thing through campaigns for a lot of these custom triggers, but you just save yourself so much time and energy if you really go through the details and set it up.
Okay, so just a couple more questions, because I know that some people pay for Klaviyo, and I know that I switched away from Klaviyo because they started charging by profiles. And so I just went with the basic Shopify email. I was wondering if you could touch real quickly on the advantages or disadvantages of just using Shopify email. Is it sufficient, or what are your recommendations there?
Yeah, so really two things. So if you're just doing automation, you're not sending out campaigns, Shopify email, I think, can get you probably about 90% of what a Klaviyo does. Now, it depends on the brand, right? Like that 10% could actually be 50% for other brands, depending on your product, your offer, your customer base. Everybody's unique, right? Like I said, so when I generally see that a product abandonment generates just as much money as a checkout abandonment, right? That may or may not be true depending on the brand. Sometimes the checkout abandonment won't do anything at all, but the product browse does everything for them. It depends on your brand. Second thing is if you are sending out campaigns on a regular basis, right? So you're just saying, hey, here's our Black Friday sale, and you want to send it to all of your subscribers, whether you know it or not, like Shopify email is not appropriate for sending out that email. If you go and look, I don't know what it is with Shopify email, but they know it's a problem. We know it's a problem. We've been talking to them about it for 3 years now. You'll see that you have a very high bounce rate on the email, generally between 2.5% and 5%, right? And then the email send gets shut down because the bounce rate is high. Now, that's not a problem with your email addresses. It's a problem with Shopify's platform. I think it goes back to the fact that they initially built Shopify email as transactional. So there's a difference between transactional emails and marketing emails, right? Transactional emails, you don't need an opt-in. You're actually required to send out an order confirmation every time somebody orders, right? So that's what they built it for. Shopify actually owns a substantial stake in Klaviyo. You might be aware they own 40% of all Klaviyo. They think Klaviyo is the winner, right? But for people who don't want to pay for Klaviyo or don't want to use it, they were like, we may as well convert this transactional email tool we have into a marketing email tool. The only problem is that the campaigns don't work very well. So if you want to be sending campaigns, you need an alternative. Klaviyo is my favorite, but OmniSend works really well, but there's a bunch of others.
Okay, that is very helpful. I know that we're going to have a question about that coming up because it triggered something in my mind that we've talked about in here before. So yeah, I didn't realize that the bounce rate was impacted by the type of email service provider.
That's really specific to Shopify. I haven't seen the problem on any other platform, but they got something going on there and they haven't fixed it. And it's been going on for years. I was really hopeful. I went up to Toronto to meet with them a couple of years ago. We talked about it and they were like, yeah, we're going to fix this. I got so excited, and then just nothing since.
Yeah. And that stinks because I send all my campaigns through Shopify email.
You should look at the bounce rate.
Okay. So just to clarify, Grid and Pixel is a program that's supplementary to like an email service provider like Shopify email or Klaviyo. So can you tell us like what's the major benefit of using Grid and Pixel in conjunction with your email service provider?
Yeah. And to reinforce that up front, if you think about what an email platform does, it helps you send emails. What we do is we help you figure out what to send in those emails so that they convert at a high rate. So you're really looking at two things. One is higher conversion rate, right? Which comes in the form of first, higher click rates, then second, higher conversion rate on your actual point of sale, Shopify. And then two is just time savings or money savings. We're not trying to replace marketing agencies necessarily, but like we've essentially created that function where instead of paying $4,000 or $1,800 a month for an email marketing agency, we charge way less because we're able to automate so much of it through the AI marketing agent we've created. So like our starting price point for doing flows and campaigns is $149 a month. And we have like a sale on that too, right? And like our highest price point gets up to $799 a month. So I have several customers, quite large, that were paying $8,000 a month for a top name marketing agency. And then they A/B tested our content against theirs, and ours should perform better. And these guys pay us anywhere from $600 a month. That's about it. So they're thrilled with the results.
Okay, so real quick before we pop off, do you have Black Friday deals ready to go right now?
So if you're looking at pricing for grid inputs, like I said, it depends on how many contacts you have, but we start at $149. Our Black Friday offer is actually $100 off that first month. And the pricing scales from there depending on how many email contacts you have. So up to 10,000 at $199 to here $299, but there's a healthy first month discount. So you could try to the end of the year for relatively little. I think you'll be happy with the results.
And I'm currently on the one where you're like doing it yourself, like after you guys set it up for me. Do you still have that option?
So we have a flat $49 a month do-it-yourself one too that you can take advantage of.
Okay. Awesome, John. So I will be sharing this for my Black Friday episode. I appreciate you coming in here and talk about Grid and Pixel. I appreciate how accessible you and your team are, even to really small shops and businesses. I will drop all of the info in the show notes, and definitely check out John and Grid and Pixel at that contact info. Thanks again, John.
Thanks for having me, Crystal.
Before you go, don't forget, if you want to finally feel confident about SEO, check out my new AI SEO Foundations course. In just 7 days, Crystal GPT will guide you step by step to make your website more findable and your business easier to buy from. Ready to get started? Visit SEOin7days.com and let AI make SEO simple. That's SEOin7days.com with the number 7.